This episode of Coach Talk is brought to you by P2C Athlete Prep.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of Coach Talk. I am joined here today by Coach Courtney Burns of Mitchell College. Coach Burns, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Coach Talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. As Steven said, my name's Courtney Burns. I'm the head women's basketball coach at Mitchell College. I'm going into my fourth year here at Mitchell. And I started my career at Rhode Island College in Providence. Had a great experience there. I always kind of touch upon that because that's the reason why I got into coaching at the collegiate level in the first place. Had an amazing experience. Got to play under a really great head coach in Marcus Riley, who's now Division I assistant at Bryant College, also in Rhode Island. But at the time, it was a program that was undergoing a major culture change. We ended up competing and winning the school's first ever Little East title in the NCAA tournament at our gym. So it was an amazing experience. Still talk to my teammates every day, but it was one of the big reasons why I started to get into college coaching in the first place. My first coaching job was actually at Johnson & Wales University in Providence as a Division III assistant. I spent one season there and was very fortunate after that first year at a very young age to be able to get a full-time job as a Division II assistant in the Northeast 10. That season I worked under Bert DeSalvo. Very interesting situation. He was only there for 1 year, but I got to dive into every aspect of coaching, scouting reports, recruiting. I was the recruiting coordinator that year, and just a little bit of everything in terms of the program. Following that, we ended up kind of changing direction at that school very late in the game and ended up getting a job in, I think it was August, which, as most coaches know, it's not a good time to be looking for, a college coaching job in August. But was very fortunate with some of the connections I had made through my playing and coaching years that was able to get a part-time assistant job at Southern New Hampshire University. It was part-time, so I ended up living with my mother in Massachusetts and actually drove 2 hours each way, to kind of break into this, coaching. You hear a lot of people talk about having to pay your dues. So, I felt those were my kind of years where I really paid my dues. The head coach there, Karen Pinkos, who's still there today, was awesome, treated me as if I were a full-time assistant, was able to allow me to split the responsibilities with the first assistant in terms of recruiting responsibilities and scouting. And it was there I actually got involved in the offensive side of the game, which was something that was a little bit different for me. We ended up implementing what we call as a read and react offense, which is pretty popular now, invented by Rick Torbett. He runs clinics and seminars all across, the country. And that was something that became a staple in my coaching career. I spent 2 seasons at Southern New Hampshire and ended up getting the job here at Mitchell. And that was kind of how my career path has gone to today. And, now I'm going into year 4.
So, Coach, where's Mitchell located?
Mitchell is located in New London, Connecticut. So right in between some really big cities. So right smack in the middle between New York City and Boston, Massachusetts. So, the good part is we have some different areas that you can explore. We kind of call ourselves beach country of Connecticut. Our campus has its own private beach, which is awesome. But again, if they want to get out, we're a train ride away from New York and about a 2-hour train ride away from Boston.
Good deal. So now, Connecticut. A lot of snow. It's cold in the winters up there.
Yes. Luckily, we've only had one snowstorm so far this year, so we're doing all right. The other day it was in the 40s, so not too bad.
Gotcha. So let's delve into this thing a little bit. So, Connecticut, are you guys playing right now?
So our students just got back on Monday, and we actually just had a meeting this week. So what they've decided is we're going to kind of take the same approach as high school sports in Connecticut. So last week, high school sports were approved for a shortened season. Our conference tournament was canceled. Unfortunately, they canceled it pretty early on. And what they decided is we're going to play local games in Connecticut. So there's a variety of other different Division III schools in the state of Connecticut, so we don't have to cross any state lines. So we have 7 games scheduled right now against other D3s in Connecticut, and we're anticipated to start practice February 8th, which would be nice. And then we'll be able to play games from then until kind of like the end of March.
Okay. Sounds good. So how has this boogeyman called the coronavirus impacted recruiting for you guys? For us, it's been there's good pieces, and I think there's bad pieces to it. We pride ourselves on always being on the road. We're at tournaments pretty much every weekend. The second the AAU circuit starts, usually we use AAU as kind of our guideline to build our lists. And once we have our list of prospects that we've spoken to, that's when it translates into high school season and us kind of seeing them in high school to see them a little bit more and just kind of support them and build that relationship. But with the delay in AAU this year, there were still some tournaments, which was great. But a lot of the teams that we traditionally recruit, we're not attending those tournaments. It was a lot of the bigger name AAU programs, some of the EYBL teams, and things along those lines. So it was a lot more difficult for us to see any players live. It was nice. Some of the tournaments did live stream, which was great. So we were able to kind of, purchase those packets as coaches and, be able to see some players. But unfortunately for us, it was not the teams that we are traditionally seeing and recruiting or the tournaments that we would traditionally go to. So social media and coach relationships have been huge for us during this time. I pride myself not just in the recruiting process of building relationships, but building relationships with high school coaches as well. So what's been nice on our end is, I've been able to reach out to those coaches and just, tell them what we're looking for and what we're trying to recruit. And they've sent us, individual workouts or small group workouts of student athletes just to showcase their game. They've gotten us in touch with, different players who've been able to send us, older film from high school. So it's been a lot of emails. Twitter, I was actually telling somebody today, has been huge for us during the pandemic. Really? We have gotten, it's been, which is interesting because I feel like, a lot of my players and a lot of athletes are more driven on Instagram nowadays. So we have social media for our Mitchell women's basketball program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And, a lot of the younger players at the, high school level are more Instagram based. But for recruiting this year, Twitter has been huge. I've had coaches from all different states reaching out to me on Twitter, sending film. We've had some players following us on Twitter. Anytime a player follows me, I'm always looking on their page to try to find if, they have any highlights, if there's any clips, any links to maybe some live games. So we've had a lot of communication with recruits through Twitter during this pandemic. I would say about half of our recruiting list and the other half has come from relationships I have from coaches all around, to be honest. So it's been, I think us to take a different opportunity. And, I think, maybe it's not traditional, but I think we're able to talk to, maybe some athletes that we necessarily wouldn't have seen in the past. So, we've been making the best of it. It's not our more traditional approach, but, I think it's been okay in terms of the type of players we're looking to get and bring in. And we've been able to find some, players, unfortunately for the 2021 class, I think with Division I and Division II getting that scholarship year back, it limited the amount of scholarship opportunities. And I think we've been able to talk to some players who, maybe would have potentially had the opportunity to earn a Division II scholarship that maybe would have been taken away just because of, everybody getting that year back. There's a limited amount to be given out to that class. So we've tried to kind of take advantage of that opportunity, being able to get some higher caliber players that necessarily in the past
maybe would have gone to Division II.
Gotcha. I had a conversation with one of my fellow coaching buds, and one of the things that he said was, "Don't be surprised if you see some Division III All-Americans moving up because they got that extra year."
Yeah, I think that's going to happen, all around. Everybody getting that year back. I think it's going to change the women's game tremendously. I think the women's game has changed quite a bit over the last few years, just in terms of the caliber of players. And you're seeing more women at the D1 level starting to dunk, and a certain different level of athleticism. And I always kind of compare it back to, when John Wooden had his time with the men, how much the men's game transformed. And, I think Gino and Pat Summitt have done the same for the women's game. And I think this pandemic, as tough as it's been on a lot of people, I think it's going to even out all the levels to a way that's going to push our game a little bit more competitively, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So as you continue to adapt the way you recruit and everything, has where you recruited, as far as, like, I'm assuming before the pandemic, you guys were probably more regionally based in your recruiting. Has this allowed you to really expand your reach on the recruiting because of the Twitter, the Instagram, social media? Has it allowed you to, I guess, increase where you're recruiting from beyond that regional level?
Yeah, I think so. I would say, our roster right now is made up of a lot of players from New York, particularly in the city, the New Rochelle and Bronx area. We have a lot of players from the different Hartford and East Hartford, New Britain area of Connecticut. We actually last year broke into Maryland, which I was pretty excited about. We've been doing that, trying to get into Maryland for a little while. They get some good players down there. So, we were excited. We finally brought in a freshman from there this year. And one of the big areas we've been trying to break into, and usually we go to the Nike Tournament of Champions in Chicago. And they have a lot of teams from the Texas area. So we've been trying to break into Texas, and I think we were pretty close. I think we've been in the top 2, and they've stayed a little bit closer to home. I think everybody, with everything going on, are kind of looking at every opportunity. So, we're recruiting a point guard out of North Carolina right now. I just talked to a young lady from Louisiana who's connected through Twitter. So I think not just us as coaches, we've been utilizing social media to try to reach out to more people and, kind of showcase, Mitchell College. But I think the student athletes as well are, I give a lot of them credit. They're trying to promote themselves because they didn't have the opportunity. And, I think they're utilizing Twitter very well to reach out to coaches and follow different programs. And it's definitely a lot more conversations from a variety of different, states as opposed to before. Right now, like I said, our roster is made up of New York, Connecticut, and we have that, one player. And so hopefully after, this recruiting class, we'll be able to say we have a kid from North Carolina and also a kid from Louisiana.
So you said something there. These kids are marketing and promoting themselves. That's a big component to what our mission here is, educating student athletes and parents on how to do just that thing. And so as these student athletes are reaching out to you and your staff, marketing and promoting themselves and using Twitter and Instagram and maybe even Facebook, what are some things that they can be doing that won't get them recruited that they may not even be aware about?
So I'll go through kind of the recruiting process in which we like to do it to be efficient. I don't know if you say we won't recruit you if you do these certain things, but now because there is such a high volume of student athletes reaching out and trying to grab attention, I always like for a student athlete to send me a highlight video first, because I have the ability to watch it within 2 or 3 minutes. I'm pretty good at it. If in 2 and 3 minutes I watch your highlight film and I don't like you, there's a reason either you don't fit our system or the skill set. It's hard to get an idea of the personality at first. Look, do you fit our systems? We're a read and react team. So we're looking for players that are versatile, can do multiple things. We look at a player and say, hey, can they shoot the three? Can they, do they have a mid-range game? And, do they have the ability to finish at the rim? And as a guard, we need a player that can do at least 2 of those 3 things in order to be successful within our system. And then our post players, we like to be versatile. We don't have a traditional back to the basket. We want them to have a move or two, but we want them to be able to step out a little bit to the perimeter as well. So we're looking for a specific type of player. So when I see their highlight film, within 1 to 2 minutes, I know whether or not I feel that, they could potentially fit our system. And then usually it's a follow-up. Okay, I want to talk to you. I'm really big on building relationships in the recruiting process. We want to have good kids that work hard, are good students. And being Division III, we don't have the opportunity to work with them in the preseason and the postseason. So we need self-motivated players. So after that highlight film, it usually results in, us trying to set up a phone call where we talk on the phone. I like student athletes who want to grind, who want to get better, who want to be a part of a winning program. Some things that turn me off in terms of talking with a player is, we always ask experience. When I hear a lot of negative feedback on their coach or their experience or their playing, that kind of raises a little bit of a red flag for me in terms of things that you don't want to hear. It usually ends up resulting, or if you talk to a player and they've jumped from, 4 or 5 different AAU programs or, transitioned high school 3 or 4 times, that concerns me in a sense of, okay, if this student athlete comes here and maybe as a freshman they don't play, are they going to transfer, or are they not going to like their particular role? Those are some red flags I would have to say if we're talking to someone initially. And then after we see that see that highlight film in a traditional year, we'd go out and see them play live. Now it's more asking for some full game film if they have anything, just to kind of see them in a flow of a game, see what they do when they make a mistake. Do they hang their head? Do they move on? Do they encourage their teammates? And things along those lines. And then once we determine from there whether or not we feel they're a good fit, I reach out to our recruits once a week, whether it be on the phone or through text. Between myself and my assistant coach, we're constantly communicating, and I feel we get a really good scope of who they are as people, and that's really important. And I think if you were to talk to our players here, I have a very good relationship with every player on.
Oh man, she froze.
We're pretty. Is it unfrozen?
Yes.
No, so that relationship just starts in the recruiting process. And that's, we spend a lot of time making sure we have, the right type of kid that's, going to work hard and be successful here.
What have you been focused on since football has ended till now?
Definitely adding some mass to myself, and my throwing this year. Mm-hmm. So mass and accuracy.
Camps, showcases, been to any of those?
I haven't gone to a camp yet. I've been invited, but I haven't gone to one because after football I've been busy with basketball, and then right after basketball I went to track.
Okay.
So I haven't really had time. But now that track's over, I'm planning on going to see.
So 3-sport athlete.
Yes, sir.
So what things are red flags for you as a coach, especially looking at social media? Like, what are some of the things that you say, okay, we can't recruit this kid, or it may make you at least have a second thought about recruiting a student athlete, just looking at their social media profile?
I would say profanity, writing things down, and cursing on social media. I think you have to be careful on which of the things you're writing on there. I think sometimes we tell our player, you're presenting yourself and your school and Mitchell when you're using your social media accounts. It's almost like you're going for a job interview. So make sure everything that you post on there represents you in a good light. I've seen pictures of recruits with their middle finger up and things along those lines, or bad mouthing certain people or programs, and those are just kind of character traits that we become really big red flags for us. So I would say those are probably the biggest pieces of no, we don't want to get involved with this student athlete. There have been players that we have talked to, and we've talked about sometimes players come from places that they don't realize that comes off the way it does, and we've still had conversations. And if it changes and they make a attempt to make it better, that's something that we consider and say, okay, that player can have some growth in there. But those are some pretty big red flags. We always tell our players, as I would tell any recruit, anything you post stays up there, and it's going to carry through even to your professional career. When you're going for a job interview and things like that, people are going to look to see how you present yourselves. And if you're constantly cursing on social media, or posting negative images, or posting negative pictures of yourself, or revealing pictures of yourself, it doesn't present you in the best light, and people can judge you based on those things. So make sure you're always presenting yourself in a professional manner in the social media avenue.
Yeah, definitely. That's huge. One of the things that I always have a conversation about with my peers is this generation of student athletes has grown up with a camera in their face, always in their hand, and they've been told from day one that they can do whatever they want to do. But where I think the failure from my generation to them was, we didn't tell them they could do whatever they wanted to do within the confines of the rules set to play the game. And
yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that's what drives a lot of times these student athletes who they think they can post whatever, say whatever, do whatever, and there's no repercussions from it. And the reality is, there's a lot of repercussions from it. And just educating them on that fact so that they understand that, hey, it does make a difference what I say and what I post, because it could keep me from getting recruited. And in some instances, it may even keep me from getting a scholarship. It's huge. So let's move forward here a little bit. You guys have done a lot of recruiting on social media because of the pandemic. What's been the biggest change for you and your staff from 2019 till now when it comes to identifying players, recruiting them, and building that relationship with them to determine whether or not you want them on as a part of your program or not?
So I would say, like I said earlier, we are on the road all the time. So in Division III, we don't have those restrictions like Division I and Division II, where we have live periods. And I actually coach an AAU team out here as well, which allows me the opportunity to travel a little bit more. So, D3 sometimes doesn't get the opportunity to go to, some of those live period events because of financial reasons and travel and things along those lines. So one of the things when I took the job here was, not many people knew about Mitchell College, and the program was not particularly skilled or talented. And, we had a very, our school had a good reputation, but our women's basketball program had kind of that easy win reputation. And so when I came here, I talk with my staff, and I've had a variety of different assistants work for me, which has been great, all from different areas. And every assistant that we've had here, our job is to be on the road and be seen all the time. And that's the approach that we've taken. And what we've done is you would see Mitchell College at every tournament on the sideline, to the point that people know who Mitchell College is now. And one of the things we would always do is, if we identified a prospect at a tournament, we would talk with them after they were done for the day. So NCAA rules allow us to actually have a face-to-face conversation with them once they've completed their competition for the day. And that's where we would kind of initiate our first talk. I'd get a chance to talk to the AAU coach, say that I was interested in them. And then what I would do is, if we had a tournament on a Saturday, you have that introduction, you talk to their coach, you get to talk to them, and then they see you sitting on the sideline the next day. We like to try to attend as many of their games as possible. One, to just how they do over the course of a weekend, where they're playing 3, 4, 5 games. And, I separate myself from the other coaches that are there, and I usually try to go down to whatever sideline or whatever baseline they're shooting on. So you make yourself stick out a little bit more than just all the college coaches sitting on one kind of row of chairs, as long as the tournament allows it. So we're able to be seen. We're able to have that, face-to-face initial conversation. And like I said, in terms of building a relationship, that's very important to us. And, if they see us at that first tournament, the next time they're at another tournament, we get their schedule, and, we're trying to follow them. So when we identify our top prospects, we're trying to be at every one of their tournaments to, show them that we're supporting them, that, they're important to us and important to our program. That's been the biggest change for me. Is I feel like I have all this free time. I'm not traveling anywhere. So again, it's a lot of different avenues in terms of having to watch more film online, again, recruit more through social media. So we've adapted, and we would never use it as an excuse. And like I said, I think we've been able to identify some prospects outside of the Northeast that we, really like and are very talented, that we're excited about. But I think that's the biggest piece. And so we've tried to continue to build our relationships through, phone calls and texting and things along those lines. Usually we would have a student athlete come up for an unofficial visit and have them kind of go through, let them meet our team, get a chance to, watch them. A lot of times our girls play pickup in the preseason, allow them to watch and kind of get a sense of what our style of play is, and, what our team is like and what the dynamics are. And usually when that goes well, we have them back up for an official visit, and they get to stay overnight with the team, and, they get to go out to eat with my assistant and I. So they really get a full scope of what our program is like. They get a chance to really sit with our team. And I think our team is one of the biggest selling points of even myself and my assistant. I think getting their feedback and them being able to explain to recruit what their experience is like is so important. And those are going to be your teammates that you're going to be with for, a majority of your career. And not being able to have players on campus for official visits and unofficial visits, we're still allowed to have a little bit, but not every building's open. They don't really get a full scope of what we're doing. So we've done Zoom tours with players. We've had players up here with masks on. So we're adapting for sure. And I think we're trying to do the best to make ourselves stand out in a time where, it'd be easy to just use it as an excuse. And so we've adapted to the best of our ability. But, me, I like that relationship building piece, them being able to really get the ins and outs of our program. And I don't think this recruiting class will have been able to have the same experience in the recruiting process that previous student athletes have. And I think that's not just a Mitchell piece. I think that's an across the board piece. And for a process that's already stressful enough for student athletes, I think it's added a little bit more stress just because of the different avenues they had to take. And because it's a situation that's unique, not just to us as college coaches, but, I've talked to AAU coaches over the last couple of weeks, and, hey, coach, can you take a look at this kid for me? Yeah, absolutely. And they're saying that their players are coming to them, asking them, what to do. And some of them are like, I don't have an answer. And, I think it's just adds a little bit more stress to, athletes in this process. And, so I feel for those, 2021s that are really trying to figure this out. I think by the time we get to the 22 class, it'll be a little bit better. And I think we'll be kind of back to normal by the time we get to the 23 class. But, I feel for them in that recruiting process, but it's different. It's a very different, not as much hands-on approach as it has been in the past.
For sure. Let's talk about the tournaments real quick. So when you guys normally go out to tournaments, do you already know who you're going to go see?
It depends. So if we've had in the past, we've had student athletes that have reached out. So we have a list of right now we have a list of 22s that we're going to look as prospects that have reached out to us through Twitter, that have sent emails through Field Level and NCSA, and they send us their schedules. And anybody who sends us something, our approach is we're always going to try to do our best to see them live. So I will gather schedules. My assistant will gather schedules, and when we go to a tournament, we'll have a list of names. And as long as we're able to attend those tournaments, we'll go through and make sure that we've had the opportunity to see them play live and kind of check it off, and then see, hey, take some notes. My assistant and I will come back. We'll reconvene. Is this player a good fit? Why or why not? And then we'll go through the list. And then we typically focus on teams that we've seen in the past that we know very well. And what's nice about it is if you can. So, for example, some of the states that we've focused on here at Mitchell in the past have been, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. We really wanted to break into Maryland. Florida has become, good on our list as well. And then the last 2.5 years, we really tried to break into Texas to try to get some players out there, because I think there's a lot of really good in that area. And we've been very close. We haven't got there yet, but we've had a lot of players come visit, which has been kind of nice. And so we'll focus on trying to see all those teams from those states. And then what's nice is they're usually playing somewhere from somebody else. So if we get the chance, so when we're watching that team, maybe it wasn't a team in particular we were looking to watch, but it gives us the opportunity to see, some other players outside of that. So, I mean, you can go to tournaments. I know when we go to Chicago, there's like 80 courts at one time. So, we go in with a pretty detailed plan of who we're looking to see, and then if any players have contacted us prior, we have their schedule and we make it a point to see them as well.
Okay, good deal. Well, we are at the end here of our time, Coach. Time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us here. This has been Coach Talk. Catch you on the next time. Be blessed, y'all.